All right, you're good to go.
All right, got it. So like I was saying, Peter will cover a day in the life at Microsoft. Chi will cover applying to Microsoft, and then Catherine will wrap it up with our inclusive hiring program. As Sam said, there will be time for Q&A at the end, but if you have questions throughout the session, please utilize the chat function, and Chi and I will do our best to get to those. And now I will send it to Peter for a day in the life at Microsoft.
Thank you so much, Christina. So what I'm going to do is talk about a concept at Microsoft we call a feature crew, a set of people working together to build a new feature for one of the software apps. And they aren't reporting to the same manager, so it's not a team in the sense of organization, but they work closely together with that same goal in mind, even though they have different roles and different skills. And what I'm going to do is show you an inside look at a feature crew having some discussions with each other and help break it down for you and help you understand what's going on there and what it's like to build a new feature for software app at Microsoft and how you can make a big impact doing that. So let me get into it. Feature crews often will meet daily or maybe bi-weekly, pretty often to have a short meeting to sync up and talk about what they're working on. So we have our feature crew here and let's listen to what they're saying.
I set up my enlistment. The instructions in the wiki were very helpful. One of the steps didn't work for me, so I asked about it on the Teams channel and Shreya explained the trick to make it work. Then I updated the wiki with the tip.
So I first won't say what role each of these team members is, but we're hearing some of the things that Elena's doing, getting the code set up, and you need to be resourceful to do it. Even when it's laid out in detail, there's often obstacles you need to get around. And so being collaborative, reaching out for help, helping others is all a big part of the process, as well as just using your skills and your troubleshooting and things like that. And let's move on and let's see what our next team member says.
I updated the spec with the new branding and all the error messages. Today I'll be meeting with the Foundations team to get an update on the new API we need.
So Alex seems to be working with some others that are outside of the feature crew that are important to delivering the feature. And they aren't here at this meeting, every day, but they from time to time, need to contribute. And he's working with like marketing and legal teams to do branding. It's kind of a complicated process, but they'll figure out, what's the right name for their feature. And then he's working with some partner teams that they have a dependency on. So he's making sure they understand the priority, seeing how dates line up and things like that. And let's move on to the next one.
I tried out the new build and the experience is looking good. I realized we could probably streamline a bit more, so I'm doing some design explorations on that.
Okay, so she really cares about the user experience of the feature, and she's trying it out herself as a user, and she has some ideas, which is great, and she's doing some explorations. Like, we're not even sure if we're gonna redesign it in a certain way, but we're gonna try out a few possibilities, and then after some more study, we might settle on one that we move forward with.
I'm working on checking in the new dialogue. I incorporated most of the code review feedback, and I'm running more tests now.
So it sounds like he's working on some code and he needs some help from his peers. He needs their approval as they review it for consistency and correctness and a lot of other, qualities about the code. And then as he gets proficient with that himself, he will be a code reviewer as well and be reviewing other people's code. And he needs to test it very thoroughly because we're shipping these out on a continual basis, and it needs to be high quality at every point in time. And that involves, having a mindset of figuring out if it's really working well in all the different cases and being thorough and doing that. Okay, so as you can see, there's all these people working together to deliver the same feature. They're kind of doing their own thing because there's, they've divvied up the work, but they're all working towards the same goal. So let's hear a little bit more of their follow-up discussion from this meeting.
Fu, did you test the dialogue with a screen reader?
Accessibility is part of this process of building new features. And Alex is reminding some of the team members to take a look at accessibility.
Oh, not yet. I'll do that today. Tina, were you able to finish the new icons we need?
Okay, and then there's artwork to do in the product. In addition to just kind of sketching out what it'll look like, we need actual art assets that we check into the product.
I have a first draft ready. I'm going to check the contrast today.
Oh, and make sure that art is accessible as well.
Alex, have you finished reviewing the customer feedback?
Yes, they love the new import feature. They just wish they could customize as well.
And customers are very important, and the feature crew needs to keep a closely in touch with customers to understand what are their needs, what problems are they running into, how could we make this better for our customers. And so Alex is looking at one of the many channels we have for getting feedback from customers and hearing what they say.
Tina, I'd love to hear more about your ideas on streamlining the experience.
So this is good, just kind of supporting one another and building off each other's ideas.
Thanks. I'll set up some time to discuss.
Okay, so.
Loop me in as well. We'll weigh it against other priorities for the second release.
Okay, so there's some excitement around these ideas that Tanya had. There's also a little word of caution here as well. Alex is jumping in, and it sounds great, but he wants to inject a little bit of discipline here, that we had a plan and a schedule to stick to. We might not be able to do this, and stay within the same plan, but maybe we will, do it at a later time. He has to kind of think about how to make the deliverable that they were set up on. So there's some amount of sticking to plans, but there's also a lot of flexibility about changing the plan as you learn more. So, but he's kind of managing that process. I'll pause right here for questions, and then also maybe just folks can tell me a little bit about what they think the roles of each of these team members is, and like any thoughts about what other things they do. If you have any, let the moderator know. I'll go ahead and go on and get into a discussion that the feature crew is having the next day at their daily meeting. Yeah, let's see what they're up to.
I tested the new dialogue in high contrast mode and noticed a few things that didn't look right. I logged 3 bugs on them.
So Elena's paying attention to accessibility, which is great, and she's testing the product, using it like an end user would, and seeing, if it works right and if there's problems. And all of the team members need to be really invested in making sure the product works well, and that's part of the process, testing it out and finding those bugs. And the process of logging bugs is about documenting it and tracking it so that all the team members can more effectively work together on prioritizing them and solving them.
I wrote a draft of the help article for the new dialogue and will send it for review today. Also, I had to halt the rollout of the shortcut key. We need to investigate some problems people reported.
Okay, Alex is doing some interesting stuff here. He's writing some content, and there's technical writers that help with that process, but often a feature crew team member like Alex needs to play a big role in that. He's like the expert in how this feature works and can get all the technical stuff right, and then work with the writer to get that published. There's something about rollouts. That's like the control about whether the customers have the feature or not. That's to ensure that it's high quality along the way, and we only give it to customers when it's ready, and we have some controls over that. And he had it rolled out to customers. Then he was listening to customer feedback, heard there were problems, and said, "Whoa, wait a minute. Maybe we need to put this on hold and not, give it to more customers until we figure out what these problems are and fix them." And he's watching that and managing that process.
I'm designing the keyboard navigation for the first run experience.
Okay, so she's looking at more design of the user experience and how it's going to work, and she's looking at accessibility again, making sure it works for keyboard users.
I added code to log more data about usage. It just needs to go through privacy review.
So data is a very important part of how we build our product and how we understand how it's working, how people are using it, and whether it's healthy and all. And so logging the data and then analyzing the data and then making decisions based on the data are all very important parts of the process. And he's adding some code to log data, and privacy is like a very fundamental right. There's a lot of regulations around it. There's a lot of the company's principles about how we handle it. And so, but there's a good framework in place, a set of rules, and he's consulting with some experts about what he can and can't do in terms of logging the data to make sure that we respect all our customers' privacy.
I was reading the code and found that we never finished implementing auto detection. I could try to do that in the upcoming hackathon.
Oh, this is interesting. What is Elena talking about? Okay, so she's digging in code, and you learn a lot by doing that. And she found some opportunities just from looking at the code, and wants to pursue them, but she has to stick to a plan, right? Because we were on a schedule and a budget, and we're delivering a feature, and this thing is kind of a tangent. It's not in the plan. But what we have is this thing called hackathons. We have them around 3 times a year or so, where you have some time to kind of do something outside the plan. And oftentimes you have some great ideas you want to pursue. And she has this idea, and she wants to spend some of her own time on it. And this is her own choosing about what to do. And it may go on to be a great feature itself.
And I was testing the new dialogue the other day and had an idea on how to make it work for videos as well. I'll create a prototype during the hackathon.
And Alex is jumping in as well. He has some ideas. His is born more out of usage of the product and looking at the code, but he wants to pursue that as well. So it's great to see that passion from him. So that is a rundown of some of the things we typically do at Microsoft in the core team composed of software engineers, product managers, and designers in building new features for software apps at Microsoft. And perhaps I'll just go back to one of the slides real quick here, and let me know what you think about which role each team member has. So we have Elena. She's a software engineer. She's digging in the code. And Alex, a product manager, he was doing a lot of different things, actually, kind of looking at the design of the product, but also customers and partners and managing the schedule and things like that. And Tina was looking at the design of the product, the user experience, and how customers are reacting to it. And Fu was also another software engineer writing code and checking it in. trying to build the product that way. So great. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. There was a couple really good questions actually in the chat while you were presenting. The first one is from Leah, and she was wondering, how is accessibility baked in the early stages? Is there a UX research accessibility specialist involved in the early part of the process?
Yes, that is great. I would say that's still evolving, and what we try to do is have all the features incorporate accessibility into every stage of the of building a new feature, and it often starts kind of with designers and product managers. They can like do a consultation and reach out with accessibility specialists that will help them represent that kind of perspective, maybe get them in touch with customers that are low vision or blind or deaf or hard of hearing, have special use assistive technologies and things like that, to help understand, is this design of the feature going to work well with them. So yeah, it's something that the feature crew will do with kind of the help of some specialists that they will consult with.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah.
Another question from Cole. This looks like a team that handles a lot of different types of problems. Would you say that there are particular skills or practices that team members at Microsoft use to do this kind of interdisciplinary work?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, software engineers, product managers, designers have a lot of different skills, that they need to bring to the table to do their roles. But as you can see, they are all working toward the same goal. And there's a lot of shared skills that all of them need to have. And, that's around, passion for quality, and really empathizing and understanding and caring to do something good for the customer to help them solve their unarticulated needs. It requires an attention to detail and time management and resource management and partnering with a lot of people. Those are all very universal skills you need for any role at Microsoft, especially within the core of the product team in these three roles, so that you can all work towards that same goal and build a great feature.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. And I think you kind of already addressed this, but Hira, apologies if I'm saying that incorrectly, had a question about, is there a central team that supports all of the other teams, or do we have specific accessibility experts within teams?
That's a great question. There's a couple different levels of it. Within a product team, so like this set of people in a feature crew, which is a small unit within a larger product organization that could be hundreds of people. Within the product unit, there can be some accessibility specialists that have a deep expertise in it and are helping to drive accessibility across the whole product. And those are people that the feature crew can consult with. And then there is a central accessibility team within Microsoft that is looking all up at the accessibility strategy of the whole company and making sure that the experience at Microsoft is accessible, and partnering with industry and organizations like Teach Access. And they're also a great resource in just understanding accessibility and reaching out and meeting people, advocates and others that are going to be using the product and getting their feedback. And that's another resource that feature crews and accessibility drivers can reach out to and to help with their work. So yeah, it kind of happens within the product group and within a central accessibility team at Microsoft.
Thank you so much, Peter. I think the last question, I will address this one verbally, actually. Laura asked if Microsoft hires dedicated quality assurance engineers, and I believe the answer is yes. I will put that in the chat as well. And then another question is, does Microsoft still have usability labs that bring in community members, including people with disabilities, to test our features and our products?
Those are both great questions. Regarding quality assurance, it's not that common these days, actually. It's most teams use what's called a software engineer role that encompasses a very wide range of responsibilities and skills. And that includes, oftentimes coding and analysis of data and things like that. But it also includes ensuring the quality of the product, that everything that they code is high quality, that automated tests are built where appropriate, and they're healthy and running well. And oftentimes a lot of manual testing also needs to be done to ensure that it really works well for our human users, and in all sorts of different scenarios, to make sure it's done very thoroughly. And rather than breaking that out in a separate role, it's part of the software engineer role. And to get into the second question about, can you remind me again?
Yeah, about usability labs. Does Microsoft bring in community members, including people with disabilities, to test our products and features?
We do. I would say that a lot of the testing that we do is lighter weight, because these feature crews, as you can see, is not a very big a set of people here, and they kind of work in a very agile model. The kind of feedback and study that they do is often short and also iterative. So they might not launch into a very deep study, but they might be doing it continuously in short cycles. We do have a number of different ways we can usability test, including with people with disabilities. We have a program where we use vendors that are certified with the trusted tester program to do that type of thing specifically, and we'll work with them to set up tests and give us feedback on our features.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but these are really great questions, so keep them coming.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we can move on to the next section if there's no other questions regarding the day in the life. But if you do have questions, keep them coming and we can see if Peter can address those as well. But I'm happy to talk about the university recruiting process. I did see a couple questions come in regarding our opportunities. So this is great timing. Thank you for asking. If we can go to the next slide, I wanted to just point out that all of our roles for Microsoft University recruiting for students or recent graduates, which I assume most, if not all of you are, they are all posted on Microsoft.com/university, which Christina put that link in the chat. That has all of our career opportunities posted there. We hire for both technical and non-technical roles. Opportunities can include software engineering and product management and UX, just like Peter talked about, but we also have roles in marketing and HR and supply chain, and the list goes on. So be sure to explore our website to see all of our open roles. We have posted all of them in August, so a couple of months ago, and we continue accepting applications on a rolling basis until all of our positions for the 2022 to 2023 school year are filled. So if a job is not on our career site anymore, that likely means that we have filled all of our opportunities for that role already for the 2022 to 2023 school year. So yeah, I encourage you to start with an application. Once you do apply, if you actually could go to the next slide, Peter, please, thank you. Once you do apply, a recruiter will review your resume. I know sometimes it can be nerve-wracking to have your application submitted and it's been weeks and you haven't heard an update. I know how frustrating that can be, but please do be patient. Allow for at least up to 90 days at the most for an update on your application. So we try to get to every application, of course, earlier than that because 90 days is a long time, but at the peak of the recruiting season with the high volume of applicants we receive, it can take as much as 90 days. And your Action Center, which is located on our career site, is where you'll see real-time updates on all of your applications. So you will see, if there's been any movement on your application, it'll be there and it'll be real time. So make sure to keep an eye on that. If you are selected, if your resume and application is selected for the role that you applied for, a recruiter will reach out to you directly to invite you to interviews. All Microsoft interviews are virtual at this time. So depending on what role you are applying for or being considered for, the interview process can look slightly different. But for the most part, they would take place via Microsoft Teams. And if you are interviewing for a technical role, like a software engineer, you would have a coding or technical questions that you would do on our third-party coding environment called Codility. And you would, of course, receive all the details and all of the preparation materials to be successful for those interviews when you are invited to them. Your recruiter will provide those for you and give you, of course, the entire timeline. And then once you do complete your virtual interviews with Microsoft, you will hear back within 2 weeks on whether or not you are receiving an offer. And if you do receive an offer, you typically have 2 to 4 weeks to decide on whether to accept that offer or not. And then hopefully after you do accept an offer, that's when our HR partners will get in touch with you to get you ready to either intern or join Microsoft full-time. And if you could go to the next slide, please. I wanted to share a couple of really helpful resources in order to just be successful in Microsoft's university recruiting process. First, we do host a series of virtual events that are centralized to any interested university candidate, and they are global events. So we like to host these so that you can learn tips on professional development topics like how to create an all-star LinkedIn or how to make the most of your internship, or more presentations like today of a day in the life. So if you're interested in those, please go to aka.ms/university virtual events. And we will put all of these links in the chat as well. And then the second resource is our Microsoft University Recruiting LinkedIn group. This is a great group to join to connect with Microsoft University recruiters and just stay up to date with announcements and those virtual events that I just mentioned, and then other career opportunities. So you can go to aka.ms/Microsoft UR LinkedIn. We'll put that link in the chat as well. And that actually brings me to a great point about LinkedIn. I really encourage everyone to create a LinkedIn profile if you don't already have one. And if you do have one, but it maybe is not super filled out, I encourage you to fill it out to the most that you can. A lot of recruiters search for qualified candidates via LinkedIn. So the more information you have on there, the more relevant skills that you have on there to the roles that you're interested in, the more likely you are to be noticed by a recruiter. So I highly recommend putting in any volunteer work, internship experience. If you've done any research projects or any technical projects, you can put those on there. Courses that you've taken, skills that you have. Make sure to include your school and your expected graduation month and year, things like that. So feel free to check out, any of our LinkedIns, Christina, myself, or Catherine. As recruiters, we're very active on there, so you can check out kind of what a filled out LinkedIn profile looks like. And we can feel free to drop those LinkedIns in the chat as well. And then lastly, interview prep resources. I think this is the most vital to being successful in the recruiting process after you are selected for interviews. Preparing is huge, and it can make all the difference in your interview process. So we're going to share some really helpful resources for you to prepare for your Microsoft interviews if you do end up getting invited to them. And I think that was my last slide, and I will pass it over to Catherine.
Hello, everybody. Nice to have me here. I'm super happy to be part of. I am actually stepping in and with their inclusive hiring programs. I my pronoun is she and her. Like we were told, I'm wearing a dark. Well, not that dark, like a light gray shirt with a Microsoft background. And I'm going to talk to you about briefly about two of our inclusive hiring programs that we have. But first, if you want to go to the next slide, Peter, please. We're going to go over some disability 101s. We want to talk to you about what that looks like. We have over 1 billion people worldwide have some form of disability. Anyone can experience disability at any point in their lives, whether it's permanent, temporary, or situational. We have 70% of disabilities are considered non-apparent disabilities, meaning you may not know if someone has a disability or not. And lastly, the unemployment rate for people with disabilities is up to 80% in some countries. Next one, please. Here we want to talk about the neurodiversity refers to variants of how the brain can work and interpret information. At Microsoft, we think of 6 broad areas impacted by disability. So we have vision, hearing, mobility, neurodiversity, learning, and mental health conditions. 1 in 10 individuals have dyslexia. 9.4% individuals have attention deficit and hyperactivity disorders. And lastly, 1 in 4 individuals have been identified with autism spectrum disorder. And the next slide, I'm going to talk to you about what Microsoft is doing with our first program. We have a disability hiring program. We host disability hiring events to make sure candidates are set up for success. By training and educating our teams on disability, proactively creating an inclusive interview environment, and providing accommodations support for our candidates with disabilities. We have 1-day hiring events, and those have the following accommodations. We have interview preparations. We do core competencies reviews and interviews trainings. We also have introduction to Microsoft cultures. Candidates meet with the members of the disability communities. We have screening, role type, expectation, same of any other candidates. We also have some built-in accommodations for you. We'll have less interviews in a day. We have interview times are extended by 15 minutes each, and we have built-in breaks as well. We have one-on-one interactive accommodation supports, and that is what we do on that program. And we're going to leave you also with that email. If you have any questions on that program, then you're more than welcome to send those requests over there. And the next slide, it's our neurodiversity hiring program. Here we have the purpose of the Microsoft Neurodiversity Hiring Program is solving in the front door experiences for neurodivergent candidates by providing a different interview approach. The role type and expectations are the same, like the other program, as any other candidate. These accommodations that I'm going to be talking about in just a minute are built into the structure of our program. However, each candidate has the option to request a specific accommodation for their own individual needs. And these are breaking down into 4 days. Our cohort includes the interview preparation as the other one, the core competencies reviews. We'll do interviews trainings. We also have some mock interviews and coaching. We have an introduction to the Microsoft culture. Candidates meet with the past program hires, members of their neurodiversity community. We also have informal introduction with hiring teams. We have group team building activities and skill building. And we have screening, role type expectations, same as the other candidates. And here I'm gonna talk to you about the built-in accommodations for that program. So the neurodiversity training for interviewers. We also do the job coaches for one-on-one support and structure interview training. We do less interviews in a day. We do structure breaks and more time between the interviews. We do interview times are extended by 15 minutes each and one-on-one interactive accommodation support. And we're also going to leave you with that email in case you have further questions. You will be again invited to address those to that email directly. Any questions that I can answer now or I can try to answer now?
Hey, Catherine, it looks like there is a question that just came through in the chat from Adriana. So they're wondering if those who participate in these programs need to have a medical diagnosis or if Microsoft uses a social model.
No, you don't need to.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Adriana. That's all I have for me. I don't know if anybody else has any other questions that you can address.
Yeah, we're happy to answer questions if you want to put them in the chat, or if we can utilize the hand raise function and you can come off mute, that works as well.
I can also ask a question if just to wrap up too is I'd love what your favorite part about working at Microsoft is. I feel like that would be really helpful for the people on the phone.
Yeah, I can go first if you like. I've been at Microsoft a long time, and the thing that excites me the most is the impact that I can have with the work that I do. I know that a lot of customers are using our products and rely on it. It's like essential to their work or their school. And it can be frustrating if it doesn't work right, or if it doesn't work for their situation. And the things I can do to understand the problems, fix them, add the capabilities that they need, can make a big difference in how they use the product and what they can achieve with it. So that gets me very excited.
I can take a moment to share. So I've been at Microsoft for about a year. This will also answer Sarah's question. I work 100% remote from Columbus, Ohio. So I've only met my team members one time. But even though I'm remote, I feel like very connected to the team, connected to moving Microsoft forward. And I feel like this has been just the best company to provide those opportunities to remote employees. So Sarah, if you're looking for a remote role, check the careers website, and I believe the location will say remote. So I know we're hiring remote for software engineers and probably across the board as well.
I have a question about what you were just saying about remote work. Like what kinds of things does Microsoft do? Because you were saying that like you feel very connected to the team and whatnot. I guess I was just wondering like what kind of things do they do or does like your team do to facilitate that?
Yeah, so I can only speak for my specific team, but we meet once a week for just a regular team meeting. And then I'm also on a morale team in my smaller team. So we kind of plan different morale events or connection events for us to meet outside of those regular team calls. Within the larger university recruiting team, there's also a morale team. All of those events are optional, but just provides like another touch point and connection with those team members. I think maybe Peter could speak more to what his specific team does and like more of the tech space if you want to share, Peter.
Yeah, that's great. in the past several months have been moving to this hybrid model, where we are trying to have people come into the office at least some of the time. For some, it's kind of difficult because it may be, yeah, and they may have to take a trip to do that. But we've tried to arrange some events, and that's an opportunity for people to meet each other and network. And then we try, and if we do have any kind of in-person event, we are always very cognizant about including remote participants. And then, I think working remote during the pandemic has taught us how to be flexible in terms of schedules and work styles and things like that. So we have people from lots of locations on different time zones. A lot of times, maybe a synchronous meeting is not the practical or the most effective way to do things, and we'll have recorded material, so pre-recorded videos and things like that, so that people can still be connected with the team, even if they're not, together in person. So those are some of the things that we've been doing to make remote and hybrid work styles work well.
If I may add to that, as you can see, we are a global company, and we are even encouraged to participate in other events on other time zones, other teams. So there's always something happening, whether it's your location or remote or virtual. We have those opportunities, like Peter said. In my case, all of my team is spread throughout the US, Canada, and the Americas. But we are encouraged to reach out, and we had opportunities. In my case, I had opportunities to participate in other events in person, and now we are starting as the pandemic progresses. So we always feel included. If that helps.
Yeah, and I'm happy to answer Sam's question of what I like most about working at Microsoft. And I apologize, I don't think I gave a visual description of myself. This is Chioma, or Chi, speaking. And I am wearing a bluish gray Microsoft t-shirt, and I have short black straight hair, brown skin, and I'm wearing a headset, and I have a Microsoft background, virtual background. But yeah, my favorite thing about working at Microsoft is probably the empowerment. I know that word is used in our mission. Our mission is empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And I truly feel empowered at Microsoft. Being a person of color and being a female in tech, I feel empowered. I feel not only recognized, but I also feel like celebrated for the unique perspectives that I bring to the table. Like, my voice is heard. If I think something should be changed, or if I have an idea, I always feel like I'm being listened to, which is amazing. And not just listened to, but like acted on. So yeah, I think that's great. And I also feel empowered to like prioritize my work-life balance. I think that's super big at Microsoft, is like everyone realizes we all have lives outside of work. I am a work to live type of person, not a live to work type of person, which I feel empowered to be at Microsoft. Some people aren't, but if you are a work to live type of person, that's okay. Like, I like to take breaks in the middle of my day. I like to make my own kind of flexible working schedule if I need to, and I feel empowered, and my manager lets me do that. So that's something I really love as well. And I wanted to address, there's lots of great questions in the chat, so I wanted to address some of those. There's one about product management roles. You see intern roles and no full-time openings. That's a great question. So all of our roles were posted for both intern and full-time. Those were all posted in August of 2022. If you're not seeing the full-time roles open on the career site, that does likely mean that we've filled all of our positions for the full-time roles for starting in 2023. So most of the roles on our career site are intern roles. We've filled most of our full-time roles at this point. And then I answered Ivana's question in the chat of what are some of the most important qualities that Microsoft looks for in university candidates. So feel free to check that out. And then there was a question about, and I think I answered someone's question individually in this chat, but I figure it'll be helpful for everyone since I see another similar question is you see your application was transferred in your Action Center. That is a completely normal part of the application process for university recruiting. Once you apply to the role, it will automatically get transferred to a recruiter's dashboard. So the recruiter who is aligned to either your university or your role or whatever it is that you apply to, now the recruiter for that role can see your application. It's the same exact position that you applied to. It's just now on a recruiter's dashboard. So that's just what that means. I wanted to call that out.
Thanks, Chi. And then I know May Sam, I think, is that how you pronounce your name? You have your hand raised, so I want to give you the opportunity to ask your question live.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that is the perfect way of pronouncing my name. So I thank you very much for the presentation. I just wanted to ask a question, kind of echo a question that was asked earlier and a question that I had myself. One of the challenges that I and people like me face when apply to different, and especially for larger corporations, especially like Microsoft, is that those of us who come from non-traditional backgrounds, like I'm speaking for myself. I have an engineering background and I'm getting a PhD in health sciences, and I worked on all sorts of projects. And that makes it kind of complicated to explain how you are the perfect fit for a particular job posting. I was wondering on your end, when you receive those types of applications, what is the best way of conveying that experience and that expertise so it doesn't look like as something that is not clear cut? Like, you know, I'm comparing myself to a traditional, like somebody who's studied UX engineering or accessibility or those kinds of fields. And compared to them, my path has been has had way more twists than that. So what is the best way of conveying that experience and expertise to you so it doesn't come off as irrelevant? Because I know that you have software to go through the keywords and like figure out what is the, I mean, does the profile generally match the job posting and all those things? So I'd like to hear your perspective on what is the best way of conveying that experience and expertise to you.
That's a great question. I'm happy to take that one. And Christina, Catherine, Peter, if you have more to add, please do feel free. Because this is just, you know, my personal perspective as a university recruiter here at Microsoft. I really appreciate that question actually, because a part of our, you know, diversity and inclusion strategy at Microsoft is to be very inclusive of non-traditional backgrounds. We completely understand that skills are transferable, and that's something that I really want to emphasize to all of you. Like, even if you might not have, if you're, let's say you're applying for a software engineering role and you're not a traditional software engineering intern with a computer science major and XYZ, that is okay. You probably likely have transferable skills from whatever experience you do have. So I highly recommend highlighting those transferable skills. What have you done that is somewhat transferable to the role that you're applying for? And that's something that we recognize, is that we don't want to just hire the same type of person over and over again. We value diversity in teams and we value unique perspectives. So as someone with maybe a non-traditional background, like you said, you might offer some value and unique perspective to Microsoft that might not already be recognized by a traditional background, or you bring something to the table that a traditional background maybe wouldn't. So I hope that gives you more confidence to apply. And then when you do apply, something to make you stand out, I think you asked that, is all I can say is really try and weave in applicable experience that you have that's on the job description or the qualifications or responsibilities of the role that you applied to. So make sure to like really weave those into your resume, of course, where they actually are applicable, keywords and skills to your resume, so that those do get noticed and highlighted by the recruiter that's reviewing your application. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So we have like a minute or two left. Is there any final questions? I believe we answered all the questions in the chat, but I just want to make sure that no one else has a live question. Awesome. like our panelists mentioned, there's still ways to stay connected. They shared a ton of resources with you all about what to look at next. But if you do have further questions, be sure to find them on LinkedIn and ask them, or even reach out on the Microsoft Careers page as well. Before I thank our panelists, anything else that our panelists want to leave on or say?
Thank you for joining us today. It's great talking with you and hearing your questions, and we look forward to engaging with you more in the future.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It was great to meet you all, and you all have really great questions. So yeah, remain curious, and I appreciate your interest in Microsoft too.
Same here. I just wanted to express, and last comment, don't feel intimidated because it's Microsoft. Just send your applications and continue to learn.
I share the same sentiments as everyone. Thank you all for joining today.
Well, we so appreciate you, all of our panelists. Thank you again, and thank you Teach Access for setting up this opportunity. People are asking if the notes and resources will be shared. They will. So will the recording. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And I hope everyone has a great Friday and a great weekend. And nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Sam.
you.
And I did real quick,
you.
just want to chime in and just remind you next week, or not next week, we will have a break there is no session next Friday, but we'll meet the following Friday, November 18th. And we will have Amy Fong from the Department of Labor to talk about U.S. Department of Labor career trends. So we hope to see you in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.